Welcome back to Incremental, the continuous improvement podcast. This is our practice edition where we talk about lean improvements made throughout the week and tie them back to lean principles. My name is Uriel Eisen from Austere Manufacturing.
And I'm Devin Bedoni from Lichen Precision.
And you got a quote?
People are willing to waste years because they're unwilling to waste days. Unknown.
And that is our episode. Yeah. Myself included.
Yes.
But I feel like the goal here is to become more and more aware of where that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I think the problem is like our brains are not good at having a gut sense of compounding.
Yep.
At all. And so like
yeah. People would spend quite differently if they did.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to bump up against it where people are like banging their heads against the same thing, but I'm sure I'm doing the same. I sort of feel that way with sales. It's like I haven't built out a very robust process for sales, and so every time I'm like, oh, let me just write this, like I'll write a few emails today and then we'll sort of figure out a more systematic way of approaching this later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's brutal. But I guess that's why we're here. Just trying to tackle this problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of,
should
we talk about some non-wasted days some wasted days that we put in
into not wasting years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll lead us off.
All right. So we talked about moving a light switch.
Yeah.
Got some good feedback on home automation stuff.
Oh, uh-huh.
And just using like Alexa.
Okay.
Or some other product. Not Alexa. Anyway.
One of those.
Like Amazon has some stuff. Google has some stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of other options. In classic form, the scope creep has been fairly paralyzing. But then John Saunders posted something about using, I think it was an Alexa outlet that was programmed, or like a little switch that was programmed where every time you clicked it, it would turn on for 3 minutes.
Oh.
For like a demagnetizer they have in the shop.
Oh, uh-huh.
And so that's very intriguing. And then also being able to trigger different things from multiple places in the shop.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. And then the last really interesting piece, because it's kind of like, well, maybe just move the switch and call it a day, is it seems like once you are comfortable with that and we're running on that, updating your, like, flexibility is way higher.
Uh-huh.
And so suddenly making changes and adjustments to your work area and your workflow would be, it would reduce the barrier.
Having the programmable things?
I think so.
Yeah.
It sort of is a bigger upfront figuring things out. But then once that was the case, like there's a bunch of timers we have in the shop that are annoying, like in an annoying place because they have to be plugged in.
Uh-huh.
And so now you're sort of like bending over to turn the timer to whatever amount of time, or like we have a fume extractor that pulls fumes from cutting webbing.
Yeah.
It also pulls fumes from gassing out our parts. It also pulls fumes from our oven at paint. And so now when I do paint, I have to like run downstairs to turn on the blower because it's located next to the thing we use the most. And so of course you can run like 24 volt relays, right? And run switches to different places, but I don't know. I haven't. So.
Right. So wait, you have not?
I've done nothing. To be clear, I've done nothing. It doesn't belong on this list.
What's the issue again with the switch? It's just turned on in a place where you don't walk by it?
It's behind a shelving unit.
Oh, yeah, that is a problem.
And it's not near the door because we moved the door. And so now you have to walk.
So this is the main light switch for the...
Yes. So it only happens once a day, so it's not that annoying, but it's pretty annoying.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I've done nothing.
Interesting.
But I did do some research into like some options, and it seems like probably a better solution.
Yeah. Huh.
Like someone mentioned, maybe it was you, the like Bluetooth option.
Yeah.
So like this is sort of on that same line of thinking, but maybe just a little more capable.
Right.
And then Avi was the one who was kind of like, this also is just like a lot more configurable down the road.
Uh-huh.
Which is compelling.
Yeah. Would you still have to program anything, or no? Because it just like talks to a speaker or a microphone. You can just say turn on the lights.
Oh no, I'd probably buy physical switches. I've done the voice command thing. It is not there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, this would all be switches. It's just you can open an app and configure things. It's like, I'm going to make this switch turn on this light, or I'm going to make this switch turn on this other thing that I have 3 switches around the shop that all turn on the same thing. And when they turn it on, it only stays on for 10 minutes or 2 hours, or when this switch triggers it, it does 2 hours. And when this other one does it, it does 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
Right?
If you do it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Nice. Kind of talked about this last week, but added default setup names in my cam template that are purposefully generic to act as a flag.
Okay.
If I forget to edit it.
Yeah.
And it flows through. And then also our prompt for standardized filling out, because as much as I do this stuff every day, it's just amazing how inconsistent humans are.
We're so creative.
But like, having to like be creative every time I named a file. It's just amazing how often I would forget a detail that seems like, how could you ever forget that? Or just name something in a weird way where it's like, whatever, the soft jaw, like, it's like, whatever. Mm-hmm. Full part name plus whatever date. Mm-hmm. Soft jaw, and the next one it'll be like half the part name, no date, op 1, and you're like, do these go together? I don't know. So adding this little
interesting
generic prompt is just very
helpful. It's interesting. That's sort of like Pokeyoke and reduced human suffering. No, what's the wasted human potential of like thinking about what you should be calling this thing. Yeah. It's just like a prompt right there.
Right. It's also standardization, scrap, if you consider bad
like
programs.
Rework or something. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Small thing, but I'm just doing that more and more throughout our whole process.
That upward spiral.
Yeah. Mostly for things that are for myself, but finding it to be helpful.
And do you talk about that with the team?
Not this specifically. But we've kind of talked about the concept. There's a lot fewer places where the team is inputting information. But as I'm saying that right now, I'm realizing that's probably not true, and I'm just not cognizant of it, and we should have this conversation.
Yeah, I feel like something I'm not doing well is sharing what I do as a way for people to be like, oh, I can think of some for my own. Like, I've heard a few shops talking about like having a Slack channel or a Discord or something where every improvement people do, they sort of document and post it.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Which is kind of cool. And then you can kind of look through them and see what everyone's doing and have that. Like Sam and I do some of that, just talking about it. It's like, I improved this.
Yeah, there's some discussion, but I have definitely not talked about this part specifically, which I think I should.
I did some refinement on the toolpath for our 1-inch cam body. I'm trying to remember exactly what the issues were. Oh yeah, it was a pretty major issue. So I made some tweaks and didn't think through what the effects might be. And so we ended up having gouge marks from the rougher on a bunch of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Which was a huge bummer. So while I was in there tweaking that a bit, added the logo to the 1-inch body, which has been on the back burner for a while.
Yeah.
We got it on the 3/4. Now it's on the 1-inch. It's so funny. It feels like there's this like pretty high activation energy to like digging into a thing. And once you're in there, you can kind of, especially like production toolpaths. It's like, this works, don't touch it, which is a bummer. And I will say one thing that has reduced that is eliminating the need for, reducing the need for hand edits to the code.
Yeah.
So I still have one outstanding item, which is the A axis.
Oh.
It still posts like past 180. So that's a post processor fix?
Avi fixed that. You can have it.
I would like to struggle. Yeah, that's not the post you're using.
No, but I think the logic that he created flowed through into the post that I'm using.
Oh, interesting.
You can also just use the post I'm using if you want. But
fascinating. Maybe I'll take you up on that. Yeah. So, and I think part of that is to do with like you sort of have to remember what tweaks or like what hand edits each one requires.
Yeah.
And of course, and now that I'm saying this, there's 3. And I should just have a list. I shouldn't have a list. I should get the post from you.
Well, step 1 might be the list, and then, if the post wasn't an option, the list would be great.
In a hypothetical world where you couldn't just fix your problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, got those.
Nice. I used to have the same thing where when I was proofing a new part that required a lot of edits, I'd have this whole other tab open that was like prompts for all of the edits that I made, and
how long did you do that?
I don't want to talk about it.
Isn't it so crazy, like looking back on these improvements that we've tackled?
Yeah.
Looking back on it, you're like, how did we keep doing that for so long? I'm trying to think what my top one is now. I asked a friend of mine, like, when we look back in 50 years or 100 years, like, what are the things we're going to talk about now that are, like, extremely barbaric or, like, sort of unbelievable? Like, you read about, like, punishments in, like, Saxony in, like, the 1400s. And it's like, whoa. and, like, kids were, you'd go to it for sort of entertainment, and it just seems insane.
Right.
And you're like, well, it was just a different set of norms that are insane.
Yeah.
But
to be clear.
Yeah, and we definitely still have a lot now.
Yeah. Can't speak for the wider world. I think
it's beyond the scope of this podcast.
Yeah. I think looking back on my business, since you asked, I bet if I look back in 5 or 10 years, it's going to be inconceivable that like I was a key piece of daily operations. Like
God willing.
Not that I was
amen.
Not that, let's see, how do I say this? It's not that I don't want to be a key piece of daily operations. The part that's crazy about it is that if something happens to me or I go on vacation, everything grinds to a halt. That's the part that is not okay.
Yeah.
I would like to continue to be a key piece of daily operations, to be perfectly honest. I just don't want to be a linchpin in daily operations.
Right.
That I think I'm sure there will be other things that I'm unaware of now, but right now I know that if I look back in a few years and I think about that, I'll be like thinking that was crazy.
I think for me it's probably painting.
Yeah.
Which
kind of the same thing.
It's strongly in the everything grinds to a halt if I'm not doing it. Yeah. Yeah. But also in terms of like my core competency and like what I can contribute value to the business, it's not that. I mean, it is unfortunately that.
You've got a pretty steady right hand.
Yeah. So they call me Cool Hand Luke. Anyway.
Yeah. I had kind of a cool one this week. Very simple. I think historically we would tend to get a lot of our jobs that have multiple part numbers.
Okay.
But not a ton. And now we're getting a lot more jobs that have anywhere from like 6 to 12.
And they all kind of ship together?
And they need to ship together.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Generally speaking. And so we have our color-coded system by due date range. Right now we just divide it into 4 weeks and color-code everything that's going to be due sometime in that week.
Yep.
Which has worked, is important, I think. But now that we have a lot of these jobs and they're intermixing across different machines, and it's not always like we get one job through before we start the next one due to material availability,
okay,
machine scheduling, et cetera, et cetera. in classic human form, we're very bad at comparing numbers and holding numbers in our heads. Right now, we organize these by a job number. And I've just found it to be very hard to like be staring around and be like, where's another 404?
Oh God. Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So we had a bunch of colored, like 1-inch round colored stickers. So just as a test, I just did a unique color to each job number.
Oh man.
Super cool.
I bet at a glance you're just like, oh, that one's lagging.
Yeah, exactly. That's
awesome.
Very helpful. I'm not sure what our long-term play is. I'll probably just get through all these stickers that I have and then figure out what to do next. And it may just continue to be more stickers.
Right.
I'd kind of like to
have it come out of the machine that way, the printer.
Oh, maybe. I don't know if that's possible.
Oh, what were you going to say?
Oh, probably just another magnet set or something. Like a magnet on the little clips that we have, just so they're reusable. But yeah, I mean, if they could come out printed that way, that'd be great.
What about stamps with ink or something?
With different colored ink?
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea. I'm not sure it's any fast. I guess, yeah.
Anyway, lots of ways of...
There are many ways to skin the...
That's awesome. I'm imagining that. It's so cool to take a task that is like... What you're achieving is exactly the same. Yeah. But it takes zero mental effort to figure out the grouping.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Instead of a lot of like computation.
Yeah. We did... Did we talk about this on the podcast? The thermal printers that can do color?
I'm not sure we did.
Okay. But yeah, I think getting that at some point is pretty high on my list.
And that is
getting one of those printers and including that in our Kanban / job flow.
And the printer you were talking about is a thermal transfer?
Thermal transfer, I think they're called. To anybody who's curious, they're like what's used to print out like a bus ticket or a subway ticket or a concert ticket.
That does seem super ideal because you know that it is pretty economical.
Yes.
And they need to be fairly durable.
They're made of PVC, actually.
Across the board, or that's one printing option?
What I looked at was like the cards were made of PVC. Maybe that was specifically these ones that had an embedded magnetic strip. But so like, yeah, you can have them in... you can get the card stock with magnetic strips, so you could like potentially even, you can QR scan, but you could also do like magnetic scans. Anyway, that's a ways down the road for us.
Yeah.
We have much more boring fish to fry first, but
boring is good.
I can see that eventually. Right now our tags are like 4x6 and have a lot of information on them.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see a world in which it's like a thumbnail and a color and a QR code, and at every station you scan it and interact.
That's what we're moving toward. Yeah, because like the second you just scan everywhere, you can do a lot of really nice stuff.
Yeah,
like built-in QC reports, which we're already sort of doing, and it's really convenient. You can do batch tracking and like time stamping of when things were done on which machines.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
Yeah. Right now, we just don't have enough terminals, basically. So it's like...
That's not the only problem, talking from someone who has a bunch of terminals sitting on a shelf. It's like, it's a lot to implement.
By terminals, I just mean like computers, like a way to view the information.
No, I'm saying I have them, but we haven't set them up because it's like...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Much more boring fish to fry.
Yeah. A not boring fish that is currently being fried. A little update on our robotic painting. So we painted one part so far, and it was medium, but seemed very promising.
Yeah.
So we've designed a puck system that is very quick, theoretically, very quick to. We're just gonna get them laser cut and then bend them by hand.
Oh, cool.
So they have like perforated bend lines.
Yeah.
They each have 2 bends and some like locating features for 2 different grip orientations. So we sort of checked a lot of the boxes. They're very, very, very simple. Did a bunch of iterations with a pen and paper and a pair of scissors. And that
iteration. Oh, yeah.
Of those pucks. Like that was really, really quick. And you can fold them. And we had all these ideas about like I was originally going to do stacked sheet metal that was like riveted together, but this is just one piece. Has like a diamond
U with.
It's like a little card with a diamond cut out of it, and then the gripper opens into that diamond.
Yeah.
And we were designing all these fingers, and at this point, it is what are those countersink screws?
Flathead.
Yeah, flathead screw driven into the end of a finger.
Yeah,
so
nice.
This comes up. It's a taper.
Yeah. Cheapest dovetail in the world.
Yeah. So it all got very simple all of a sudden, and is, I think, completely poka-yoke in terms of like flipping it 180 both directions or any of the mix of directions. So like when you put a part into the like pick from station.
Yeah.
And then the place station where anyway, so that is all poka-yoke. Designed most of this stuff Alicia's done. I've just kind of been advising, but like designed a thing that holds the paint gun and actuates the trigger and holds it in, and that's all kinematically mounted, which is kind of nifty.
Cool.
I don't know if it matters, but it certainly means that it's very repeatable, even off of a 3D printer.
Yeah.
And like contamination won't make it kind of rock, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of where we're at. We're waiting on some pneumatic parts and some test laser cut parts to come in to actually do a test.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's super exciting.
Very exciting.
I made a new Fusion cam template that combines our lathe and mill workflow into one with
template of what? In cam?
In cam.
Oh, fascinating. So you just turn on and turn off different like chucks and vices and stuff?
Yeah, basically.
Okay. That's cool.
And a lot of it is kind of, it's where the chucks are located relative to the stock and the different origins.
Okay.
It didn't actually take that long. I'd just been kind of punting it.
And why did you do it?
We're doing a fair amount of work these days that is has a bunch of turned features and then some milled features.
Gotcha. Oh, nice. So you can come in with an Op 2 vice without changing to a new template.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool.
And then I did sort of design it so you could go either way if needed. So you could start
from mill to a lathe.
You could go backwards if you wanted to.
Interesting.
Or, to the one, to the other, and then back, depending on how everything plays out.
And how do you like, I could imagine wanting to grab it for Op 2 from a lot of, well, I guess it's either axial or
it's pretty much always for in the mill.
Yeah, from a lathe part.
Pretty much in my experience so far anyway, it's always been axial.
Gotcha.
And if we need to work on the side, we tip it over on the fourth.
Got it. So the vice is just oriented that way.
Yeah.
And so Op 1 vice and your lathe chuck are in the same place, the centers or something like that.
Ish.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's another thing looking back, like, I guess it was just a year ago really, but the fact that we used so many different vices all the time and had so many different types of setups just seems bananas now.
So now you're basically on the Shunk KSCs?
Yeah.
And that's been
solid. Like every once in a while we get something that's too big, which we could solve with cash by getting bigger KSCs, but right now.
Wouldn't that be equivalent to having a different vice entirely, or does that?
No, because they're still centering vices and we'd still be able to work off the same kind of like work offsets, and
you could just add that vice into the mix and the workflow's the same.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So you're not transitioning to a centering vice. You're going to like the orange vice?
Yeah.
Got it.
And actually one thing, I never said it in here, but even after converting to the KSC vices, I still for a while was using like a variety of work offsets.
Right.
And this is going to sound so ridiculous. Because in my head, I was like, well, when the vice isn't on a rotary for some reason and we're not programming from the rotary center line, that point isn't there. So I need to probe something else that's in physical space. And then one day I was like, it doesn't matter if it's there. It's just a number.
Wait, so this is including on a machine that doesn't have a fourth on it at all?
Yeah. So if there's no fourth on the machine, we just use the theoretical point.
That is sort of equivalent. That would put the vice in the same place relative to the center line.
Yeah. And I was like, I felt
it's brilliant,
so stupid and so smart.
Yeah.
Right. As I realized that.
No, that makes, I could, I could see that being a jump because I was like, but it's not there. Yeah.
It's
that's
not
funny.
So basically, I think we still have some slight variations on some older parts that we still run through, but I think everything going forward, we use that single origin for.
Here's a dumb question for you.
Yeah.
Is it possible on the orange vice, the dual station, to put some block down in the channel that captures the screw and make it into a centering vice?
I don't know. It doesn't have a feature on it for that.
No. But it seems like you could put a collar, like a shaft collar on it or something.
If you machined away a part of... maybe?
Something? I don't know. Anyway, maybe that would get you your enormous centering vice.
I like the way you think. Yeah.
Maybe. It's not just execution, which is trivial.
Yeah, that's not a fish to fry for tomorrow.
No. Okay, I talked about this in the last episode, but a master to-do list and sort of transitioning that into space on a calendar. Or in like a time boxing something. Yeah. But I would say the one that belongs in this episode is definitely just one to-do list to rule them all. And in the darkness find them. So got that. The problem I was trying to solve there was definitely like wasted human potential of running through all the lists in my head of all the different tasks I have to do. And then
you don't like being up at 2 a.m. thinking about work?
Yeah, I have to say, like, I hate working off of a to-do list. Like, I just don't like it.
Interesting.
Because I don't know, something like, I don't know why. I'm just really not a huge fan of it. But it is, I find
stifling your creativity.
Maybe it's like, oh, what am I going to do now? Instead of like, all right, I have 10 more items to just like check off the list. I think it starts to just feel like very much like execution.
Yeah.
But
like you're being executed.
Exactly. Yes, actually. No, so I don't like it, but the relaxation of like someone says something to me and I'm like, oh, I need to do that.
Yeah. And
I just put it on a list and I know I'm not going to, I don't have to remember it, has been really huge. This is all really dumb stuff to talk about on a podcast, I guess, in that I think people, I don't know. I think the theme of this podcast is maybe like talking about the simple things that
make a difference.
It makes, it's been making a huge difference. In college, I was very, very diligent about a calendar and a to-do list and had a very clear system. The thing that's different about being in school, just in general, is when someone says, this is due, you have to do it. But in life, there's many more things that are ambiguous, right? And like there are some things that you have to do, but most things you don't. Yeah. And I guess in school you also don't, but like, I don't know why you're in school if you're
it's externalized. Yeah,
it's just like, okay, I have to do it. I'll write it down and I'll do it. Whereas, so I sort of fell off of a lot of those sort of best practices, and so getting back to them.
Nice. I added standard probing to op 1 in our mill template, cam mill template.
Your unified template now.
I still have another one that's separate, although they might just become the one.
Okay.
We'll see. This will sound silly, but I did make myself a checklist for programming, but I have not been checking it.
That seems
in classic form.
Reasonable. I mean, not reasonable, but like that is the problem with SOPs that I've been experiencing.
Yeah. So we are, as just discussed, using these vices in a standard manner, and the stock is always centered instead of being aligned with an edge.
Was it previously?
Well, back in the old day, we'd often like...
Because it was a known place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Use a corner or a work stop. Now it's just stuck in the center. But usually we don't set a stop. We're just visually doing it and probing. But that doesn't work very well if I forget to put the probing in the program.
Interesting.
So I added a couple options. One that's just probing in X, which is usually the way that vise is aligned.
Mm-hmm.
And then one that's probing also in Y, X and Y.
I have a dumb idea that might not be totally dumb.
Huh.
What about making I could imagine doing it with a rack and pinion or a different mechanism that was a 3D printed part that would sit down over both sides, because you have a standardized soft jaw essentially.
Yeah.
Or for Op 1, is it a soft jaw or is it hard jaws from Shunk?
Usually hard jaws from Shunk.
So like that would drop down on that, and then it would have like guides that would come in centered. Because per part, I would imagine you're placing a bunch of the same size stock.
Yeah.
So you could just set it, like clamp it, and then that would be your way of loading.
Yeah.
You might not even need to probe, but I guess you just probe anyway.
Kind of just probe for reliability.
Yeah.
People can still mess up with a stop. I guess if it was that type of stop, not so much. Like when we do set a stop, we usually just have a shaft with a shaft collar that we set for what we want.
Nice.
But
anyway,
yeah,
just a thought.
It's a possibility.
I know when I was centering stuff up by eye, I was always like leaning in and like really giving it a strong eye.
Yeah.
You know.
Gotcha.
But I think I was machining off of that. I'm not sure I was probing. So if you probe,
yeah, you got
a good long approach.
Got some leeway. The jaws are marked on the top, like with lines for every half centimeter, I think.
Gotcha. So that helps kind of.
Yeah, get you pretty well centered.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, I talked about the Kanban stuff, so I don't know if it bears repeating. Last week, our Kanban database made a bunch of edits and stuff, optimizing it. Lastly, working on some exciting new buckle designs. Trying to get through like a couple iterations a week. Trying to systemize some of the R&D stuff, because it always feels like I go through kind of the same cycle of like, easy win. Then you make one and you're like, not so easy, not so win. And like, I don't know. It just feels like I could avoid some of the sort of false starts, but also back to the like timing and scheduling. I'm trying to sort of set some benchmarks for the year for different tasks. Like how many products do I want to release this year? And then what does that mean for number of months, and also not getting sidetracked into like another product idea that's an easy win, and then 4 days later I'm like, oh, it's not an easy win.
Yeah.
And then I go back to the original one that actually it's not easy, because most of these things aren't easy.
Yeah.
But is sort of strategically a good move for the company. Anyway, so and the goal there also is to not feel like I'm falling short of an absurd
expectation,
like a non-explicit expectation. Like I have tons of products in my head, and it's always sort of a bummer that more of them don't exist.
Yeah.
But it's like they're just not going to for a while, right?
Yeah.
Like I can release, I don't know, 3 to 5 a year. I feel like is realistic.
Yeah.
Which is a bummer, but is also just where I'm at.
Yeah.
Like if I hire for some of the work I do, then that can be increased, but that's also a job.
Sure. 100%.
Is what I'm learning. Yeah.
Yeah. Last one, a couple. We got just a tabletop shipping tape dispenser for our shipping station.
Fascinating.
I actually didn't order this. It just arrived, and I was like, that's smart.
The best type of improvement.
Yeah. So we wrap almost everything with craft paper.
Okay.
And in the past, it's been like either having the like big hand dispenser, like trying to do it on a part, which is ridiculous, or pre-cutting a bunch of pieces and sticking them. Anyway, silly. So yes, somebody ordered that, and I think it's going to be pretty great.
That's awesome.
And kind of silly that we took so long to get it. And then one other small one, which as I wrote this down, I was like, this is definitely a Band-Aid and not fixing the problem.
Okay.
We often have stock bars accumulate on our infeed table of our bandsaw. There are multiple reasons for that. One, people just not remembering to put the remnants back after they're done sawing, which that just needs to be fixed. The other is sometimes stuff being prepped, like they're in preparation to saw or a job that is partway through. So like maybe we cut a test block and then pushed it back out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
What has happened a few times is we set that thing back there and then we start sawing something else and it's auto feeding and it slowly rolls the other material forward until that material comes in underneath the blade in a non-clamped situation, and it's very bad.
Yeah.
So someone just stuck a piece of material at the end, like a piece of aluminum.
Oh, smart.
That covers half of the end of the infeed table so that anything that's back there, if it is wanting to roll forward, just hits that instead.
So it's behind the
auto
fence,
feed mechanism.
kind of. Okay.
Yeah.
That is clever.
Yeah.
Prevents damaging the blade.
Yeah.
Doesn't solve the root cause.
Doesn't solve the root cause.
I'm still a big fan of the concept of a rolling infeed table. So you can just have a bunch of stock types laid out and you just roll back and forth between them.
Yeah. Like a magazine.
It'd just be it would be like ultimate SMED.
Yeah.
On the saw.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a teensy tiny one. I've been updating logos in the template emails that I send out. The other day, I just deleted one, and then I sent 2 more today that I deleted, and finally I was like, nope. Stop. Where's that logo? Great. So, yeah, just propagating all that stuff.
Nice.
To make our lives just a little bit easier every day.
Hopefully we're not making tricycles. Or maybe we're making tricycles.
Or maybe we are. Maybe we want tricycles.
Well, thank you, everybody, for listening along. And hope the new schedule is working well for everyone. I think it's working well for us.
Yep.
Got some more juice in the tank.
Yep.
You can find me on the internet at likenprecision.com, on Instagram at lichen_MFG, and the pod at incrementalci on Instagram.
And you can find me at austere_manufacturing on Instagram and austeremfg.com on the internet. If you need some buckles, that's where they are.
Ah, yes.
And we have a Patreon. Please consider checking it out. We have a lurker tier. Excellent for lurking. $1 a month. Consider supporting the pod. Talk to you guys later.